In this video, we are going to be talking about the last Pope prophecy. Now, I don't know too much about this prophecy, but I decided that I should channel some information, and I'm just going to share that with you guys today. My name is Catherine. I'm an energy healer, spiritual coach, and nurse practitioner. If you need personalized coaching or an energy healing from yours truly, then you can go to my website at catherineglassman.com, or you can email me at hello@catherineglassman.com. Please keep in mind that the majority of this video is going to be just my opinion channeled from my own meditations. So if it resonates, then great. And if not, that's totally fine. And I mean, if you've been watching my channel, then you already know that what I talk about is pretty out there. And so this is going to be another one of those videos. It's just weird. But those of you who follow me, I love you dearly because you guys get it. And it's just so nice to have somebody to talk to and to be able to share these things with, okay, and not feel like I'm crazy all the time. So thank you dearly from the bottom of my heart. All right, so there is a new pope in town. He goes by the name of Leo, but his original name is Robert Prevost, and he is apparently from Chicago, Illinois, from the US, the first American pope. Now, according to this prophecy that was written by Saint Malachy, it is a document that is written in Latin and is just like a couple of sentences of a description of every pope to have ever been in the papacy, I think is how you pronounce it. And up until 112, afterwards, I guess it depends on how you interpret the prophecy, right? Some say that after the 112th Pope, which by the way was Pope Francis, who recently passed away, okay, after that will be Judgment Day, or there will be a new Pope, but this Pope will be a wolf in sheep's clothing and may in fact be the Antichrist. Another interpretation is that the 112th Pope will meet the Antichrist, thus kickstarting Judgment Day. Okay. Now, there apparently was a meeting between Pope Francis and J.D. Vance, who is the vice president of the U.S. And so some think that, J.D. Vance is the Antichrist. Some people think that the new Pope is the Antichrist. So there's just a lot of theories, and I'm here for it because I'm about to give you another one. So in preparation, not of this video, but just in preparation of there being like a new pope to be elected, I decided to watch Conclave, the movie. I was familiar with the process of Conclave, but I've never really, did a deep dive into the process or anything like that. And so I watched it, and it's actually an excellent movie. It was very informative, very educational, and it was a drama. And apparently, from what I've read, some of the new cardinals that had never gone to conclave were actually watching that movie to kind of get a good idea of how the process worked. So, which I just absolutely love because, as a nurse or a nurse practitioner, it's not like it was completely unheard of for us to pull up a YouTube video of how to do a particular procedure, like how to start an IV or something like that before going in to see a patient. Okay. Yes, it is a real thing. Sometimes you just got to fake it till you make it. And that's just how you learn. So I just think it's really funny. I will say that I meditated on the information and I got some downloads, but I always like to compare my downloads to what other people have seen or what conspiracy theorists believe about whatever the subject. And I could not find anyone out there that had similar information that I did. And so, could I be totally wrong? For sure. Do I feel like I'm wrong? Not really. Only because it's not me. It's not my brain getting the information. Okay. It's not my human self getting that info. I'm channeling that information. And I really try to make a point to set a very clear intention that I share information on behalf of source frequency, on behalf of God, okay? That it is for the highest good for everyone that hears it, and it is only of the highest truth, okay? Those are my intentions that I set very clearly before I meditate on information and then I share it in a public space like YouTube. That is the only reason why I am confident on it. And plus, working with clients and things and having information validated, like, yeah, that too. But I mean, I guess you could call this maybe a prediction video. Maybe. I don't really like making those because timelines can shift. And it's just, yeah, I don't like to do that. But whatever. I meditated on it, so I'm going to share the information with you. So the first question I asked was, what is conclave and what is the process of having a pope, and why does that even have to happen? Because it is a very big ritual. It's a very big deal among the Catholic community. I mean, it's a big deal. And if you are Catholic, I do not mean to offend you at all, okay? I was raised Catholic, but over the years, it just didn't resonate. And then now I just kind of get information, and I try to remain pretty neutral and objective about the information that comes in, okay? So, but what I got is that it's basically a political system in a sense. It is a little less about religion. It is more about politics and power. Although the Catholic religion is based on Christianity, and it is based on real believers and real rituals and real traditions that are deeply rooted in Jesus Christ and creation and miracles and things like that, saints, it is unfortunately highly corrupt, and it acts more as a political powerhouse rather than a religious institution. But it is functioning under a religious institution. The Catholic Church has been very successful in working under the guise of a religious institution in order to embed itself into pretty much every part of the world. And so obviously you have a good amount of Catholicism pretty much everywhere, right? In most countries, if not all countries. And they obviously have a reputation, especially the Roman Catholics, especially back in the day, of using their power with religion and politics to basically overtake cities and empires and destroy a lot of their history, and to take a lot of their secret knowledge and hoard it for themselves, which is where the Vatican archives come from. Now, I didn't channel this particular set of information, but it seems to be fairly well known that the Vatican archives have a lot of information on the occult, on the existence of aliens, on the sex trafficking rings that function in underground tunnels, right? They are a part of all of that. And if you look at some of their traditions and rituals, you will see a lot of symbolism, and a lot of everything that they do looks very much like they are practicing something from the occult, down to what they wear, down to the symbols that are on their gowns. Even when you look at some of their artwork and their architecture, you can clearly see that it is not exactly the most high vibrational place. One example would be the statue called the Resurrection. It's either the Resurrection or the Resurrection of Christ, but it's in some audience hall within the Vatican. And I tell you what, it is just terrifying. I have never seen it firsthand myself. So if I got to go there, I would have a better feel for the type of frequency that it's giving off. But just looking at it, it's very dark. And of course, some will argue that yes, it is just part of the art. It is, of course, like you can call anything art, right? It doesn't matter how terrifying it is or how terrible it makes you feel. If you call it art, then it's art. But it is, it's not the most pleasant thing to look at. And so with the knowledge that it is more of a political system rather than a religious institution, and we all know that the Vatican is its own country as well. So it has its own laws. When I asked what was the whole point of even having a pope, what was the whole point of conclave, what I got was that it's basically like electing a new president. Except this president will rule over the church, and it will have the primary power and influence over how the church interacts with other world leaders. Because the Pope is a world leader. Even though we would like to think of the Pope as a religious figure, maybe even like a philanthropist, maybe that's what we would like, but that is not necessarily what they are. And again, this is just channeled information from yours truly, okay? So let's say, for example, we have a pope and he is evil. If all other world leaders are also evil, they're doing bad things, like, for example, maybe hurting children, right? Then they all can continue to operate as they see fit without ever having to answer to anyone, because they're all doing the same thing. They're all a part of the same club, the same secret societies, the same, rich families, the same bloodlines, the same DNA that may not necessarily be from Earth and may not necessarily be human. One would speculate that maybe they're mostly reptilian, right? This would just be another way to keep control of all of the masses, including the Catholics. It, of course, wouldn't be that hard to believe if a pope was actually evil or that the church itself was highly corrupt, because, it's a little hard to ignore all of the sexual abuse that happened among Catholic priests. And I know that some of us have forgotten that that was a thing, but it was, and it still is. And it's been pretty well documented that there have been priests that were reported to the Catholic Church, to the Vatican, and instead of being removed and reprimanded, or even just kicked out entirely or imprisoned, they were just moved to another church. It was all quietly hidden. And they have the ability to hide all of those things, the ability to hide occult documents, other countries' history. They have that kind of power. And not only have they flexed that power in the past, but they continue to do so in the present. And unfortunately, there are many Catholic priests that are responsible for a lot of religious trauma that people have endured. So anyway, sorry to go on a tangent, but Catholic Church, political power, guised as religious institution. Okay. So then I asked, is conclave actually legitimate? And the answer that I got was, It is as a process, but it is predetermined. Just like with most things, most people that are in power, a lot of it is already predetermined. This process exists so that it gives people the illusion that there is some sort of democracy, even within the Catholic Church, that there is some sort of system where there are checks and balances so that only an elected official or an elected cardinal will become the Pope based on the judgment of all of the other cardinals who had voted them in. And it is meant to appear as a very serious process where they are, placed in a building and they do not have access to the outside world, and they deliberate and they are alone for days. Now, was it always like this? No. But again, a lot of the larger institutions, corporations, political systems, they were started out with good intentions, with democracy in mind, and have just become corrupt over time. One potential way of proving that this actually might be true is the fact that after Pope Francis died, Donald Trump, who is the president of the United States, may or may not have posted a picture of himself, an AI generated photo of himself as the Pope. Okay. Now, he did not post it to his personal Twitter, but it was posted by the White House Twitter account. Okay. And, they interviewed him about it, and he kind of said it was just a joke, maybe it's AI, like just being silly, saying that the Catholics loved it. Okay. So he kind of blew it off as a joke. But, a lot of people took offense to that. They thought that it was very distasteful, that it was disrespectful to the process and to the Catholic Church in general, and then also to Pope Francis. But what's interesting is that he posted that, or the White House posted that, and then finally, in the first time in history, the first American Pope is elected. So it kind of makes you wonder, did Donald Trump or did the US administration, the Donald Trump administration, have some sort of influence in an American being elected? So then we can just take this prophecy and theory even further. So if that's the case, a lot of people believe that Donald Trump is evil, that he is this terrible human being, and that America is going straight to hell because of it. And now we have an American Pope. I have a feeling, I don't know for sure, but I have a feeling that there are probably a lot of people all over the world that are a little worried that there is an American Pope now because Donald Trump is president. But what I have seen in meditation, and again, this is just what I've seen, it's just an opinion, okay? Donald Trump is going to bring a lot of chaos and just a lot of mayhem, not necessarily to destroy anybody or the country or anything like that, but rather to create chaos within the old system that has been running the world. Now, I don't have any interest in politics, okay? I don't identify as any political party because if you're red or if you're blue, if you're, a liberal or if you're conservative, even to identify yourself as anything within the polarity is still missing the point. There's still a bigger thing happening. And I do believe that despite how Donald Trump presents himself and who he is as a person, there is something bigger that he's going after. And I do believe that the reason why there was a public assassination attempt on him, okay? Which, by the way, CNN tends to be a little bit more of like a liberal media stream, and they didn't air any live speeches of Donald Trump at all, except for one. And it was the one where he got shot. Okay. There's a lot of, and I made a video on that whole thing, so you can watch that. Of course, there's a lot of conspiracy about his assassination attempt, but if history serves us well, we know that the CIA has been involved in a lot of assassination attempts or assassination successes, okay? And it's usually to take people out that are disrupting a system that's already in place. And so, do I believe that's what Donald Trump is doing? I do. And from what I saw in meditation, that is exactly why this particular Pope, who is American, is where he is now. When it comes to the prophecy of Judgment Day and the coming of the Antichrist, what I saw is that there isn't going to be a literal Antichrist to come forward during Judgment Day, and nor will there just be a Judgment Day that's going to be filled with fire and the end of the world or anything like that. But rather, it's going to be the Judgment Day of a system. And it is this system that I believe that what I've seen, that this Pope is going to help take down. And because we are actually living the book of Revelations. Things are falling apart. Hollywood is falling apart. There is being a lot of light shed on secret societies and the Illuminati and the medical system and the healthcare industry and the food supplies and, alien disclosure. Like, everything is happening, which means that it is Judgment Day of an old world. And the Antichrist that is going to be coming is going to be the information that comes to light. So what I'm really hoping to see is that this Pope actually starts to bring forth information to the public, the truth of the church. Hopefully he will actually start holding people truly accountable for the terrible things that they have done, specifically the priests in the church that have committed assault. Because if you think about it, the way society has been running for a while, including the church, including not holding people accountable as far as assault goes, that whole energy, the entire just situation in general is in fact very anti-Christ-like. We are about to experience a reset of everything. A monetary, financial reset, a political reset, obviously. I mean, Donald Trump seems to be a reset. A lot of people right now that are alive, right, are just baffled by what is happening. It is such a crazy time to be alive right now. We finally have celebrities that are being held accountable for their abuse. And how long did that abuse go on for? There are big documentaries being released about the sexual assault against children. I mean, it's just, we are resetting. And I honestly think that Pope Leo is going to help reset the church, or at least one can hope anyway. And if that really is the case, then I think he will indeed be facing the Antichrist, figuratively speaking, of course, which is very exciting because that will only mean that the return of Christ, right, will happen in the form of Christ consciousness. And we're already seeing it, right? There are so many people that are having their own personal experiences with Jesus. There are apparently a lot of people leaving like Islam because they're having their own experiences with Jesus. And so I think that a lot of us thought that maybe, you know, according to prophecies and things like that, or the Bible, that we were going to see a literal Antichrist and a literal return of Jesus Christ himself. It's going to be energetic. It's just going to be the continued spiritual war that we have found ourselves in, except the Antichrist will come in the form of the dark knowledge that we have been living without, but living in. And the Christ consciousness is going to be how we move forward. But of course, with this opinion and channeled information, right, this says nothing about the people who believe in Catholicism, the people that go to church, right? One of the most beloved people that I know was my godmother, Nina, who was a very devout Catholic. And actually, I had one of my very first spiritual experiences at her house. And she had, you know, because she was Catholic, she had a bunch of Catholic stuff everywhere, right? She had statues of Jesus and statues of Mary. She had rosaries everywhere, crosses everywhere, okay? And I was very young, and I was sleeping in her bed with my two other cousins. My two other cousins were younger, and so they slept in the middle. I was the oldest, and so I slept on one end of the bed, and she slept on the other end. And on her end, there was a very tall statue of Mary. I mean, and when I say tall, it was probably like 3 feet maybe, all right? And one night, I woke up and sat up because there was something that was really bright in the room, and I looked over, and the statue of Mother Mary was glowing. And I was like, okay, that's weird, whatever. I just chalked it up to it being like a light or like glow in the dark or something like that. And so I just left it alone. I felt perfectly safe, so I just went back to bed. The next day, we're all like running around. Me and the cousins were playing tag or hide and seek or something. I just remember running around the house, and I ran past that statue, and I remembered that it was glowing. So I took a couple steps back to go look at it, and I touched it and I tapped it, and the statue was made out of porcelain. And so I gently tipped it over on its side to look at the bottom, and the damn thing is hollow. It doesn't have a plug. It does not glow. It does not glow in the dark. It does not have a light source. It is just a porcelain statue. I, of course, didn't say anything because I didn't want people to think that I was lying or that I was crazy. So I didn't mention anything. It wasn't until years later that I overheard my sister telling the story of how this particular rosary that my godmother, Nina, gave her, and that she woke up in the middle of the night and that it was glowing. And she told my Nina about it, and she said, oh, honey, that's how you know that they're protecting you. Okay? So trust me when I say, this does not, anything that I have mentioned in this video, this does not speak on anybody who believes in the religion, okay? Because honestly, it is those people that believe in the religion wholeheartedly are the ones that are keeping it alive. The powers that be within the institution, corrupt. But the energy that lives within each and all of us, each and every one of us, that is what actually makes the religion. So I'm excited to see what happens. And of course, if there are any updates, I'll just make a follow-up video and get back to you guys. But I hope you liked the video. Give it a thumbs up if you did. Consider subscribing, and I will see you next time.